Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K Collector, and I want to give my few thoughts on the new Neo Geo console that's coming out. But more importantly, what I think this means for the future of physical. And it's late, so I'm not going to be too long here. I'm actually kind of reshuffling the deck with some of my retro games. I'm having to move some things around and actually create space for changes to the room that I'm keeping my games in. So I'm not going to be too long. So let me first talk about the console and then what I think it means for the future of physical gaming. So as far as the console goes, I think it's amazing. I think that the fact that anyone has decided to make a 1-to-1 replica of any console, let alone the Neo Geo, is amazing. I think what's the most amazing thing about it is that they are trying to make this thing a 1-to-1 replica all the way down to the guts, the internal components of the console. A lot of times when we see these recreations, these remakes, these re-releases of these consoles, they've changed so much of what's inside them that it's really more of like a token piece, and it doesn't really feel like the actual console. But this is probably as close as we're going to get as any company deciding to literally recreate or re-release new copies of an original console. So shout outs to the company. I can't think of their name because, like I said, it's late. But shout out to the company that's taken on this challenge and that's decided to go ahead and remake this console for the enthusiasts out there. Um, I did order mine. I did not order the Ultimate Edition because I just didn't think that I personally needed that. I know there was a lot of value in it, and I know a few people are like, well, just buy the Ultimate Edition and sell off the parts of the edition that you don't want. I'm not going that route because I don't think that the market, meaning I don't think that there are as many people like hunting for Neo Geo games as it seems. I know there's a lot of hype around it right now. I know a lot of people are excited about it right now, but I just don't think the market for the Neo Geo is that wide. So, and I don't really want the hassle of spending $1,000 to then have to turn around and try and figure out who can I find to buy different parts of the collection. I'm not a completionist. I don't need to have every single game, and there's only a few games that I'm probably going to get for the console itself. I'll probably get all 3 installments of the Sengoku games. I'll probably get the Shock Trooper games. I don't know if I'll get all the Metal Slug games. I know I'll probably get all of the shoot 'em ups for sure. I was a little bit disappointed when I think the main shoot 'em up they have being released as one of the first 10 games. I think it's Last Resort, or no, it's Polestar. Sorry, I think it's Polestar. I was hoping that they would have added Last Resort or maybe Blazing Star because Blazing Star is such a rare game to find. But from what I understand, they're going to continue to manufacture games for the console, and they're actually going to manufacture new games for the console. So that is all very, very exciting. I am excited to get it. I think it's going to be a wonderful holiday treat. I think the game will. I think orders will start being shipped out around November 12th. I think the date was. So this is exciting. This is genuinely exciting. I think anyone who's pre-ordered this and anyone who gets this around the holidays is going to have a very Merry Christmas. I do not think that this is one of those pieces that people need to keep brand new, sealed in box. I don't think that this is, in my opinion, any type of shelf candy. This is a console that I'm genuinely going to want to play. I think this is something that hopefully more folks will play. I mean, obviously, keep the box. You want to keep it as fresh as possible because I do think that it will be a collector's piece. But I don't know if this version of the Neo Geo will ever be more of a collector's piece than the original Neo Geo consoles that are out there. So, which leads me to my next thought. what do I think this means for the price of Neo Geo games, like original Neo Geo games and original Neo Geo consoles? I don't really know. I don't think it's going to have a humongous effect. I don't think it's going to have the impact that a lot of people think it's going to have, because I don't think that this console coming out is going to alter the amount of people or collectors or Neo Geo enthusiasts out there who care about the Neo Geo today. And I would venture to say that the majority of that conglomerate, they actually care about the difference between original Neo Geo hardware and original Neo Geo games versus these new ones that come out. And I'm sure for someone who's been collecting the Neo Geo for decades, there's going to be a, whether it's in the forefront of your mind or it's somewhere back in your subconscious, you are going to be subconsciously thinking every time you get a new Neo Geo game, yeah, but this isn't an original. This isn't something from the 90s. And that's just going to be there. So I don't think that these new games are going to replace or usurp in any way the, you know, the standing that I think original Neo Geo games currently have within the retro gaming collector community space. So that's what I think. Now, what do I think this ultimately means, though, when it comes to the future of physical video games, future of physical media? Well, if I'm a person who was afraid of everything going digital, this should actually make you breathe a sigh of relief. Because if there's a company out there willing to go ahead and take on the challenge of remaking the Neo Geo AES, that tells me that the sky's the limit, and pretty much any console that you would want to see remade could be remade again. And that means everything from the Jaguar to the TurboGrafx to the Sega Saturn to the Dreamcast to whatever console you think is like, man, I'm never going to see this console again. I do think that the ability for companies to go out there and make one-to-one replicas of any console is definitely, it's doable, right? It really just boils down to which company actually wants to take that on, and which company wants, you know, what does the market look like for whatever console, you know, you're thinking about. I think that, you know, I'd be very interested to see who is really running for this new Neo Geo console, because almost every video that I've seen with a person talking about this console is a person that's either in their mid to late 30s or all going all the way to their 50s. I have not seen any like really young people on YouTube, like someone in their 20s, you know, raving about the Neo Geo. I just haven't seen it. And that's probably because someone in their 20s doesn't even really know or probably even care about the Neo Geo, right? So this is a very novel idea, that's going to cater to a very niche group. But if we kind of pull the curtain back and let's say they start reintroducing Sega consoles, which is something that I would love to see. Probably not so much of the Genesis, because there's just so many, you know, Sega Genesis consoles floating out there in the ether that I don't think that's really difficult to find. And while there are also a decent number of Sega Dreamcast consoles out there, we don't have a lot of like, you know, Sega CDX consoles. I think it would be amazing if someone said, you know, we're going to remake Sega CDX consoles, and we're going to make Sega CD games. Or even the Sega Saturn. Like I said before, how great would it be for someone to create a Sega Saturn that not only plays, you know, North American Sega Saturn games, but also Japanese Sega Saturn games. And if you do happen to, you know, let's say buy a Japanese Sega Saturn game, maybe the console automatically translates, you know, the game for you from, you know, Japanese to English, subtitles. You know, maybe there's some type of system or some, you know, chip or mechanism that allows for that automatic translation. I mean, just seeing the Neo Geo being reproduced here in 2026 makes me feel like any physical console can be recreated. And I think when you think about the future of physical video games, the future of physical collecting, that has to make almost every collector excited. It has to. The only people who are not excited about this are people who are gatekeepers, people who are afraid that these recreated consoles are going to somehow lower the value of their collections. Those are really the only people who are probably going to frown at the idea of, some of these really rare and expensive games and consoles being re-released. But if you're someone who's just kind of thinking about what the future of physical video games look like, you can rest assured that there is going to be a company out there that takes it upon themselves to push the future of physical gaming. So I could I have a lot more to say on this, but it's really late, and I think I got a couple messages asking me about the Neo Geo, and just one person wanted me to share my thoughts. So I figured I'd go ahead and make this video. Let me know your thoughts about the console. Did you pre-order the Neo Geo? What does this make you think about the future of physical? And what do you think this is going to do to the value of, current Neo Geo games and consoles that are in existence? Let me know your thoughts. I'll catch you in the next one. So Y2K Collector, take it easy.